Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving deep into a quote that really sets the stage for something quite extraordinary. Dr. Verghese Kurian, a man whose vision genuinely transformed a nation, he once observed this. I was convinced that the biggest power in India is the power of its people, the power of millions of farmers and their families. What if we mobilized them? If we combined this farmer power with professional management, what could they not achieve? What could India not become?
Powerful words. You've almost certainly seen the Amul brand, right? Maybe on a milk carton, a tub of ice cream, a block of butter. But honestly, few outside of India truly grasp the incredible, almost revolutionary journey behind its rise. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack how Amul became India's largest food product marketing organization. We'll explore its very unique cooperative model and try to understand the profound challenges it faced, particularly around 2013, as it navigated a rapidly changing India. What insights can we really pull from this story?
That's exactly right. Our mission today is, to sift through the source material, the history, the structure, and really pull out those critical nuggets of insight. The things that reveal Amul's enduring success and its ongoing relevance. Because this isn't just about milk or butter or cheese, it's fundamentally a story about a socio-economic revolution, one that lifted millions and, frankly, transformed a nation's rural landscape. And to really get a handle on Amul's impact, we first need to understand the unique landscape of Indian dairy back then. By 2013, India had already become the world's largest milk-producing and consuming nation, which is kind of surprising when you think about it.
Largest in the world. That's huge.
It is.
Yeah.
And think about the human scale involved here. This sector directly engaged approximately 90 million families. That touches the lives of maybe 400 million individuals, all within a rural population that numbers a staggering 830 million people.
Wow. 90 million families. That's an incredible scale. But what truly makes the Indian dairy scene different from, say, Western models? How do these millions of tiny farms actually change the game?
That's a really great question because the contrast is, it's stark. While Western practices often involve these massive mechanized farms, maybe thousands of cattle.
Right, the big industrial operations.
Exactly. India's milk primarily comes from small farmers.
Yeah.
Really small. On average, they own just 2 cows.
Only 2.
Just 2, on average. And this is largely because of fragmented land holdings, land getting divided over generations. But 82% of farms are smaller than 2 hectares. So dairy farming, for most, it's a crucial secondary income. And there's another layer. It's also predominantly managed by women in the household. That adds a whole unique social dimension to it.
Okay, so small scale, secondary income, women-led. What about the market itself? How does the milk actually get distributed?
Yeah, the market structure is also really unique. Roughly half, 50% of all milk produced is actually kept for self-consumption by the farming families.
Makes sense.
Then a massive chunk, about 40%, is distributed by these unorganized milkmen, sometimes called dudwalas. They sell directly to local consumers, often door to door.
So only 10% is left for the formal sector.
Only about 10% goes through the formal, organized channels. And even within that small slice, farmer-owned cooperatives like Amul capture almost half of it, around 45%. Large private players get the other 55%. It shows you the power of the cooperative model even then. With 177 milk unions, 133,000 village societies involving 14 million farmers.
That's fascinating. And there's another unique aspect I wanted to touch on. The widespread inclusion of buffalo milk alongside cow milk. Often they're just mixed together at collection points, right? What are the practical implications of that?
Oh, it's a critical distinction, absolutely.
Yeah.
Buffalo milk is noticeably fattier and it lasts longer. That makes it really ideal for products like yogurt or paneer, which is that Indian cottage cheese, and ghee, which is clarified butter.
Okay.
Cow milk, on the other hand, has less fat, spoils a bit faster, but it's generally preferred for making cheese and many traditional Indian desserts like sweets.
And what about crossbred cattle? Do they play a big role?
They do offer higher yields, yes, but they also come with higher costs. They tend to be more sensitive to disease, need better feed, so it's a trade-off for the small farmer.
Right. So zooming out a bit, what does all this tell us about the economic significance of the dairy sector as a whole for India, especially back in 2013?
Well, looking at the broader impacts, the economic significance is just immense. In 2013, the entire Indian dairy market, that's organized and unorganized, was estimated at around $47.6 billion.
$47 billion.
Yep. And what's really striking is that it had been growing at about 7.5% annually. That was actually outpacing the country's average GDP growth, which was around 6%.
Wow, growing faster than the overall economy.
Like, exactly. It's not just big numbers. It's a powerful testament to how crucial dairy is to India's rural economy.
Yeah.
It was fueling growth faster than the national average, really underscoring its potential.
And why was demand surging like that?
Several reasons. India's vast vegetarian population is a big one. For them, dairy products make up a significant chunk, maybe 18% to 20% of the average household's food bill.
Right, a major protein source.
Definitely. Plus, you had rising per capita incomes, people could afford more, and just a growing population overall. So you can see why the demand just kept climbing.
But even with that kind of organic growth and these, unique foundations, no market stays unchallenged forever. I imagine the success started attracting new players.
Exactly right. The very success of Indian dairy was drawing in a new wave of competitors, particularly those eyeing the higher-end market, the premium segment.
Like what kind of products?
We start seeing new dairy entrepreneurs focusing on things like farm-to-home organic milk, probiotic Greek yogurt, whey protein supplements, and all those convenient on-the-go dairy drinks and snacks.
So the landscape was getting more crowded, more complex.
Definitely. A dynamic and evolving landscape, creating both opportunity and, significantly increased competition for established players like Amul.
Okay, so given that unique and, frankly, challenging dairy landscape, what was the spark? What was the catalyst that actually brought Amul into existence? Where did this incredible journey really begin?
Well, its origin story is actually rooted in a fight for fairness, going way back to the 1930s and 40s, even before India gained independence.
Okay.
There was this private company called Polson Dairy. They held a monopoly in the Anand region of Gujarat, and they were basically forcing farmers in the Kaira district to sell their milk at unreasonably low prices.
Classic exploitation, basically.
Pretty much. It
Yeah.
was widely seen as economic exploitation, a symptom of the colonial system at the time.
Hmm.
The farmers felt cheated.
So how did they react? Did they just accept it?
No, they didn't. This situation escalated and led to a really pivotal moment. In 1946, the Kaira farmers, bravely led by the famous freedom fighter Sardar Patel,
Sardar Patel, okay, a major figure.
a huge figure in India's independence movement, he encouraged them and they went on strike. They refused to sell milk to Polson.
A milk strike, that takes courage.
It really did.
Yeah.
And their defiance actually paid off. The government eventually relented and gave them permission to form their own cooperative, the Kaira District Cooperative Milk Producers Union Limited.
The Kaira Union.
That's the one. By 1948, this brand new union had already begun pasteurizing milk. That was the first crucial step.
And it was into this emerging cooperative scene that a truly unexpected figure arrived, almost by chance, it seems, to change everything. Tell us about Dr. Verghese Kurian. His background seems, well, rather unusual for a dairy pioneer, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Kurian's background was, highly unusual for this field. He had a master's degree in metallurgy and nuclear physics from Michigan State University in the U.S.
Metallurgy and nuclear physics, not exactly dairy science.
Not at all. And initially, he had zero interest in dairy. He was actually obligated to accept a government post at a research creamery in Anand in 1949 as part of a scholarship bond. Anand back then was just this sleepy little town, maybe 10,000 people. He felt completely out of place.
So how did this reluctant engineer, with no prior dairy experience, go from feeling frustrated and wanting to leave to becoming so deeply committed to these farmers?
Well, despite his initial frustrations, he really did want out. At first, Kurian started spending his spare time helping the Kaira Union farmers. They had bought some secondhand processing equipment, and it kept breaking down.
Ah, so he put his engineering skills to use.
Exactly. He got his hands dirty, working alongside them, fixing these machines, and through that direct interaction, right there on the ground, he developed this deep empathy for their challenges. The fragmented land holdings, their weak bargaining power against buyers like Polson.
He saw their struggle firsthand.
He really did.
Yeah.
And that hands-on experience, it solidified his commitment. It sort of became his mission to help them run their dairy plant successfully, to help them empower themselves. He decided to stay.
And with Kurian now fully on board, what were some of Amul's, or rather the Kaira Union's first major steps beyond just processing raw milk? How did they start building what would eventually become this giant organization?
Right, so with the Kaira Union now more established and Kurian providing technical and managerial leadership, they weren't content to just collect and pasteurize milk. The next 5 years or so, say 1955 to 1960, were crucial. they really started innovating.
In what ways?
They expanded their facilities. They began producing milk powder, butter, ghee, condensed milk, even baby food and cheese, things India mostly imported back then.
Taking on new product categories early on.
Very early on. And crucially, they figured out how to extend their reach to new markets like Bombay. They developed better distribution networks using refrigerated transportation. It signaled their ambition went way beyond just the local district.
It sounds like they were pushing boundaries right from the start. Was there a particularly groundbreaking achievement for them in those foundational years, something that really stood out?
Yeah, one of the most intriguing things, and something that really defied conventional wisdom at the time, was a major technical breakthrough. Amul actually proved Western dairy experts wrong. They successfully figured out how to manufacture products like milk powder and, importantly, cheese using buffalo milk. Most Western experts said it was impossible, or at least commercially unviable, because buffalo milk has different properties.
Wow, okay, that's a big deal.
It was huge. It opened up vast possibilities given India's large buffalo population. And beyond just products, they also pioneered things like artificial insemination services for cattle, introduced mobile veterinary units to reach remote villages, and even set up a plant to manufacture balanced cattle feed, all aimed at boosting farmer yields and improving the quality and quantity of milk.
They were building the whole ecosystem, not just a factory.
Precisely. Supporting the farmer at every stage.
And just as a side note, if you want to understand Amul's deep connection to Indian culture and how its story captured the national imagination, look no further than the critically acclaimed Bollywood film Manthan from 1977.
Ah, yes, the churning.
Exactly. This movie fictionalized Amul's early development, including Kareem's leadership role and the struggles and triumphs of the farmers. It really celebrated the power of collective benefit. It even won India's National Film Award for Best Hindi Film and was India's submission to the American Academy Awards. It shows how resonant this story was.
And that local success in Kaira didn't go unnoticed nationally for long. Amul's cooperative model quickly gained attention at the highest levels. In 1964, the then Prime Minister, Lal Bahadur Shastri, visited Anand.
Okay.
He was apparently so impressed by what he saw by the cooperative's impact that he famously asked Dr. Kurian to establish the National Dairy Development Board, the NDDB.
And the goal was?
The explicit task for the NDDB was to replicate Amul's successful cooperative model across the entire country, take what worked in Gujarat and scale it up nationwide.
A huge mandate.
Massive. And so in 1965, the NDDB launched what became famously known as Operation Flood.
Operation Flood. It had a brilliant and maybe slightly counterintuitive strategy, didn't it? Can you walk us through how it actually worked and what made it so effective?
Absolutely. The genius of Operation Flood really lay in its innovative, almost bootstrap strategy. It started by using gifted milk powder and butter oil, mainly from the European Economic Community.
So, foreign aid, essentially.
Yes, but here's the clever part. This wasn't just given away directly to consumers. Instead, it was sold in major urban centers: Delhi, Kolkata, Mumbai, Chennai. The money generated from these sales was then used to invest in building India's own dairy infrastructure.
Ah, using aid to generate capital for local development.
Exactly. It created initial demand for processed milk products in cities. Then, crucially, once that demand was established, Operation Flood focused on fulfilling it with locally procured milk from Indian farmers, organized into cooperatives, not with continued imports.
So built the market first, then built a supply chain to meet it.
Precisely. It created brand recognition for milk products, and, vitally, it guaranteed a market. That encouraged local farmers to invest their own time, effort, and money into dairy farming, knowing their milk would actually be bought at a fair price. And the scale of Operation Flood was just monumental. It completely reshaped India's rural economy. It led to the establishment of over 70,000 village cooperative societies across 170 milk sheds or districts.
70,000 village cooperatives.
70,000, all linked to district-level dairy cooperatives and processing plants. It fundamentally restructured India's dairy landscape, turning Amul's localized success into a truly national phenomenon.
And the socioeconomic impact of this white revolution, as it came to be called, sounds immense. It went far beyond just increasing milk production numbers.
Oh, it truly did. The impact on people's lives was profound. First, the basics. Per capita milk availability in India soared. It grew from just about 0.13 liters per day back in the early 1950s.
Barely anything.
Right. To a remarkable 0.3 liters per day by 2012-2013. More than double. But the real story, I think, is in the economic uplift.
How so?
The annual payments flowing directly to dairy farmers through this cooperative system just exploded. From around $60 million in 1972 to nearly $1 billion, $973.7 million by 1995.
Wow. A massive increase in income going directly to farmers.
Directly. And this benefited nearly 100 million Indian families, many of whom were, impoverished small farmers, women who often managed the cattle, or even landless laborers who could raise an animal or two.
So it reached the poorest segments.
Absolutely. This whole phenomenon became known as the White Revolution. And the villages that participated, you could often see a visible transformation. People started calling them milk roads, places with cleaner streets, better fed kids, better built houses, tangible signs of prosperity.
That's a truly staggering transformation. From just liters of milk to literal milk roads, it really drives home how this wasn't just about dairy products, but about dignity, about economic liberation for millions. What did that look like on the ground in those milk road villages you mentioned?
Well, Dr. Kirian himself often highlighted how the cooperative structure helped transcend social barriers, things like religious, ethnic, caste, and even gender tensions.
How did it do that?
He used to talk about the milk collection queues at the village societies. They were strictly first come, first serve. Your caste or social standing didn't matter. You stood in line like everyone else. That was quite radical in many village contexts.
A practical form of equality.
Exactly. And also, the independent income that women earned from selling milk, because often they were the ones managed the cows, it frequently led to more equality within their own households. It gave them greater financial agency, improved their social standing. It was a kind of bottom-up empowerment. And this transformative success also spurred a lasting legacy in education. The establishment of the Institute of Rural Management Anand, usually called IRMA, back in 1979.
IRMA, okay. What was its purpose?
It was specifically created with Koreans' backing to train professional managers and leaders for rural organizations, particularly cooperatives, to ensure a pipeline of skilled people who understood both management principles and the rural context.
Building capacity for the future.
Precisely. And it became, and still is, a crucial talent source. Many of Amul's senior managers, including the MD in 2013, R.S. Sodhi, actually came from IRMA. He was from its very first graduating class.
So, if this whole revolution was built on the back of the cooperative model, let's dig into that structure itself. What is the beating heart of Amul's operational success? How is it actually put together to enable such massive scale and, importantly, that equitable distribution of benefits?
Right. Central to its success, and really its identity, is this unique three-tier cooperative structure. It's worth understanding how it works. At the very base, you have the village level. This is where the farmers are. Farmers who own cows or buffalo can join their local village dairy cooperative society, usually by buying a nominal share and committing to sell their surplus milk to the society.
Okay, the grassroots level.
Exactly. Milk is collected there twice a day, morning and evening.
Right.
And critically, farmers are paid right there, usually in cash, based precisely and transparently on the quantity and, importantly, the fat content of the milk they supply.
Transparency and immediate payment, that sounds key.
Absolutely key for building trust. And these village societies also often provide services back to the farmers, like selling affordable, high-quality cattle feed or facilitating veterinary care.
Got it. So the milk is collected at the village. Then where does it go?
It then moves up to the next tier,
Yeah.
the district level. Here you have the district milk unions. These unions are actually owned collectively by all the village societies within that district.
Ah, so the societies own the union.
Correct. The unions purchase all the milk collected by the village societies. They arrange for its transportation to the district dairy plants, where it's processed into various value-added products, pasteurized milk, butter, ghee, powder, etc. The unions then handle the marketing and sale of these products, usually within their own district. They also provide crucial support services back down to the village societies and farmers, like veterinary care, artificial insemination services, and farmer training programs. They're the operational hub.
Okay, village societies feeding into district unions. And then finally, at the very top, there's the organization most people probably recognize as Amul, the Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation, or GCMMF. What's its specific role in this whole structure?
Right, the GCMMF. This was formed by Dr. Kirian in 1973, realizing that while the district unions were strong locally, they needed a unified approach for wider marketing. So the GCMMF serves as the apex marketing body.
And who owns the GCMMF?
Crucially, it's owned collectively by the district milk unions themselves. Its board consists of elected representatives, usually the chairman, from each member union. This ensures farmer control continues right to the very top.
Interesting. So what does GCMMF actually do?
Its main purpose is common branding under the Amul name and coordinated marketing across India and internationally. It handles the common distribution network, plans the overall product mix, coordinates procurement of bulk raw materials other than the raw milk itself, provides technical support and quality control standards to the unions, helps arrange financing, and even acts as a forum to resolve any conflicts or issues between the member unions. It brings everything together under one umbrella.
That structure sounds incredibly powerful. It seems designed to ensure profits genuinely flow back down.
That's absolutely right. The real genius here isn't just the three tiers, but how it fundamentally changes the typical corporate relationship. This model ensures that the bulk of the profits generated from selling Amul products are shared directly back with the farmer members, usually based on the quantity of milk they supplied.
So the farmers are the ultimate beneficiaries.
They are, and it doesn't stop there. A significant portion of the earnings is also often retained by the village societies and district unions for community development projects. Things like building schools, improving village roads, digging wells, things that benefit the entire community.
Wow.
And critically, the farmers maintain democratic control over the entire cooperative structure through regular elections at every level. This creates this unparalleled system of ownership, loyalty, and importantly, a built-in incentive for quality control that you just don't typically find in traditional corporate structures. They own the brand's reputation.
Now, speaking of the brand, let's talk about the iconic Amul name itself. Where did that come from, and what was the thinking behind it?
Yeah, the name Amul is quite interesting. It was apparently suggested by a chemist working at the Anand lab back in 1957. It comes from the Sanskrit word amulya,
Amulia, meaning
priceless or invaluable, which was felt to perfectly symbolize the quality of the products and also connect with the idea of Swadeshi, or indigenous production, which was a powerful sentiment in post-independence India.
makes sense.
And it also served as a handy acronym for the Anand Milk Union Limited, the original Kairi Union. So it worked on multiple levels. The initial tagline was quite straightforward, purely the best.
Simple and confident. And then, of course, in 1966, came the figure who would define the brand perhaps more than anything else, the Amul girl.
How did this little impish figure in the polka dot dress become such a massive cultural phenomenon?
Ah, the Amul girl. Yeah, she's legendary. She was created in 1966 by the advertising agency ASP, specifically by Sylvester da Cunha, the agency head, and the art director, Eustace Fernandez.
And the concept was, the idea was to create a mascot that was memorable, lovable, a bit mischievous, but also quintessentially Indian. This little girl in her polka-dotted frock just clicked. She quickly became the instantly recognizable, charming face of the brand.
And that tagline, utterly butterly Amul, it's unforgettable.
Absolutely unforgettable. Apparently that line, utterly butterly delicious Amul, which was quickly shortened, was suggested by Sylvester da Cunha's wife, Nisha. It was just perfect, catchy, playful, emphasized the butter aspect. It stuck like, well, butter.
It really did. And the outdoor advertising campaign featuring the Amul girl, especially the billboards, became more than just ads. They turned into this unique cultural mirror for India. It's hard to overstate their impact, isn't it? Can you give us some examples of how she reflected and often gently spoofed current events?
Oh, it was a stroke of absolute genius in marketing and really in social commentary. It started with simple product-focused billboards, like one early one saying, "Give us this day our daily bread with Amul butter," literally put up on lampposts, but it quickly evolved into these topical ads that commented, often humorously, on literally everything happening in India and the world. Politics, sports, movies, social issues, scandals. Nothing was off limits.
Any specific examples that come to mind?
Oh, loads. When Kolkata was in the midst of a leftist political movement with slogans like "Cholbi Na," meaning will not do or won't be tolerated, Amul came out with an ad showing the girl saying, "Toast without Amul, Cholbi Na."
Ah, clever.
Very clever. During an Indian Airlines strike, when flights were erratic, her ad cheekily proclaimed, "Indian Airlines serves Amul butter when it flies." They were timely, witty, never malicious, and always, always relevant. They captured the public mood. And this went on for decades. By 2013, it was estimated that over 4,000 of these unique topical billboards had been created, covering that vast range of topics: politics, sports, entertainment, national and international events.
4,000 unique ads. That's incredible.
It really is. Alik Padamsee, another legendary Indian ad man, recalled how Amul basically conquered the butter market in Bombay with just 6 strategically placed hoardings featuring the girl. because they were so talked about.
Word of mouth fueled by clever creator.
Exactly. Even the Bollywood superstar Amitabh Bachchan noted that whether you were featured positively or negatively in an Amul ad was often a reflection of your film's public success or failure.
Wow.
These ads truly represent, as one creative director famously put it, a history of modern India acted out by a little heroine. They're a cultural archive in themselves.
Okay, so Amul builds this incredible brand, rooted in the cooperative, but their growth didn't stop there. After the government-run Bombay Milk Scheme was disbanded in the 1980s, Amul saw an opportunity and started marketing fresh, liquid milk under its own brand name in 1987, first in Ahmedabad, then rolling out to other major cities. This sounds like a massive logistical leap, especially given how quickly fresh milk spoils. How did they tackle that challenge?
It was a monumental challenge, you're right. Fresh milk is highly perishable. To tackle it, Amul had to build an incredibly robust and efficient cold supply chain. They needed insulated tankers, chilling centers, refrigerated storage at depots, and a distribution system that could get milk to retailers and often consumers very quickly.
A huge investment, presumably.
Huge investment and complex logistics. They managed to ensure widespread availability without spoilage, even managing to supply milk twice a day in some key markets to guarantee freshness.
Twice a day, that's demanding.
Extremely. And by 2013, this operation had reached enormous scale. Remember those 3.2 million farmer members? They were producing, on average, 12.8 million liters of milk every single day. This was processed across 49 different plants. And fresh milks had actually become Amul's single largest revenue source, accounting for about 50% of their total sales.
Half their business from fresh milk.
Yep. And they weren't resting. Around that time, they were planning another massive investment, about $500 million, specifically to upgrade and expand their processing plants further. It shows their continued commitment to scale, efficiency, and freshness.
And beyond just the logistics of moving milk, what about maintaining quality? With millions of liters coming from millions of small farmers, how did Amul ensure consistency and safety across such a vast decentralized network?
That's another cornerstone of their operation, a relentless focus on quality. They implemented these stringent cow-to-consumer quality checks at every single stage.
Every stage? Like what?
Right from the initial collection point at the village cooperative, checking for adulteration, fat content, etc. Then again at the chilling centers, multiple checks during processing at the plant, and even monitoring conditions during transport and dispatch to the retail outlets.
Wow, that's comprehensive.
It had to be. It highlights how the entire cooperative chain, from the farmer to the federation, felt a collective responsibility for preserving the quality and, therefore, the reputation of the Amul brand they all owned.
You mentioned earlier their vast product mix. Butter, cheese, ice cream, milk powder, yogurt drinks. How does Amul manage to distribute such a wide variety of products effectively, especially since they require different handling?
That's another really unique aspect of their operation. Amul is believed to be the only organization, certainly in dairy, maybe globally, that operates 4 distinct temperature-controlled distribution channels simultaneously.
4 channels, what are they?
They have a frozen channel, primarily for ice cream and frozen products like pizzas, a fresh channel for pasteurized milk, a chilled channel for products like yogurt, paneer, buttermilk, cheese, and an ambient channel for products that don't need refrigeration, like ghee, milk powder, baby food.
So they built separate logistics for each temperature need.
Essentially, yes. This complex multi-channel approach is what allows them to offer that incredibly vast product mix, catering to almost any consumer dairy need and get it to market effectively.
And how did they ensure these products didn't just reach the big cities, but got into, as the source material says, literally every nook and corner of India, including smaller towns and villages, the bottom of the pyramid?
Their market penetration strategy was deliberately designed for deep reach. To get into those smaller towns and rural areas, they used differential pricing and packaging. Meaning they sold smaller, more affordable pack sizes, maybe costing just $7.09 to $100, 18 cents in these smaller markets, making products accessible even on very tight budgets. Alongside these, they'd have the larger standard pack sizes costing 50 cents to $3 or more, primarily for urban consumers. This flexibility was key to reaching all income levels.
Smart. Tailoring the offering to the market.
Very smart. And the results by 2013 really speak for themselves. Amul had, 46 different products across 8 major categories. They were available in something like 3,000 Indian towns, sold through nearly 1 million retail outlets across the country.
1 million outlets. That's incredible reach.
Incredible. And on top of that, they'd also established around 7,000 franchised Amul parlors, small exclusive retail outlets selling only Amul products. They even experiment with dedicated ice cream parlors and casual dining restaurants under the Amul brand.
They were everywhere. How did this translate into sales and market position?
Well, in 2013, Amul reported sales of about $2.5 billion. And they had been growing at a blistering pace for around 20% year on year for the previous 5 consecutive years.
20% growth on that base is huge.
It's huge. Just for comparison, Nestle India, a major multinational competitor, reported sales of about $1.5 billion in 2012. So Amul was significantly larger in the Indian market. They were the clear market leader in most of the product categories they operated in, like butter, cheese, ice cream, milk powder. And they were also India's largest exporter of dairy products. Just dominant. Now let's talk about some of Amul's core competitive advantages that allowed this dominance. One key factor is definitely its pricing strategy. How do they position themselves against competitors, especially the big multinationals?
Right, because they weren't always the cheapest, were they? Especially for fresh milk.
That's right. For fresh milk, they often charged a slight premium, largely due to higher transportation and cold chain costs involved in ensuring freshness over long distances. But for most of their value-added products, butter, cheese, ice cream, gulls, Amul generally priced them slightly lower than the multinational companies like Nestle or Danone.
Why were they able to do that?
A few reasons. The MNCs typically had higher overheads, bigger advertising budgets, higher margins demanded by retailers, sometimes royalty payments back to their parent companies. Amul, being a cooperative focused on farmer returns, operated leaner. Their prices often became the de facto benchmark in the market, and consumers developed this deep trust that Amul would always charge the correct price, fair value, for good quality.
That scale itself, reaching 1 million outlets, processing millions of liters, that sounds like an enormous barrier to entry for anyone trying to compete head-on, doesn't it? Can you give us an example of how that scale played out against a major competitor?
Oh, it absolutely is a massive barrier. Amul's sheer size, in both distribution reach and milk procurement, creates incredible economies of scale that keep their costs relatively low and make it extremely difficult for others to match, especially across multiple product categories requiring different logistics.
Like the Nestle butter example.
Exactly. That's a classic case. Nestle, a global giant, launched a butter brand in India back in 2001, but they pulled it from the market just 4 years later, in 2005.
Why couldn't they make it work?
The main reason cited was that their existing distribution network, primarily built for ambient products like Maggi noodles or Nescafe, just didn't have enough traffic or volume in the chilled category to justify the heavy investment required for a nationwide cold chain, specifically for butter.
But Amul already had that cold chain for milk.
Precisely. Amul's massive pre-existing cold chain, built primarily for its huge fresh milk and ice cream business, made adding butter distribution much more economically viable. Their scale and related categories subsidize the infrastructure needed for butter. It really highlights how scale isn't just about market share. It's about making certain complex operations financially feasible in the first place. And then there's the procurement side. Another critical, maybe even the most critical differentiator is Amul's farmer-centric procurement model. We talked about the structure, but the financial aspect is key. They pass back a huge chunk of their revenue estimates, are around 80% to 85% directly to the farmers.
80 to 85%. That sounds incredibly high compared to typical supply chains.
It is incredibly high. It meant they could offer farmers significantly better prices for their milk. For instance, in 2012, Amul was paying around 52 cents per liter, compared to an average of maybe $0.45 from other private dairies or smaller cooperatives.
So farmers had a strong financial incentive to stick with Amul.
A very strong incentive. And it's incredibly difficult for private companies, especially multinationals, to replicate this vast grassroots procurement network across millions of tiny fragmented land holdings. They just can't match the payout structure or the level of farmer loyalty built over decades. As one Amul executive eloquently put it in the source material, not having a profit motive in the traditional corporate sense is a huge asset. It fundamentally changes the dynamic.
Amul also seems to have a very distinct advertising philosophy. You mentioned the Amul Girl, but overall they spend significantly less than competitors, right? Less than 1% of their turnover on advertising compared to maybe 14% for others like HUL. How do they manage to get such big impact from a relatively lean budget? And what was Dr. Kurian's personal take on things like promotions and discounts?
Yeah, their advertising efficiency is remarkable. A big part of it is that umbrella brand strategy we touched on. They primarily promote the Amul brand name, often using campaigns like the famous Taste of India tagline, which showcases the entire range of products together. This creates synergy and avoids the cost of running separate campaigns for dozens of individual products.
So one message reinforces everything.
Pretty much. Their campaigns also tend to run for longer periods, building consistency and deeper consumer recall rather than constantly chopping and changing. And Dr. Kurian himself had very strong views on this. He insisted on buying the best, most prominent advertising spots to ensure visibility.
Quality over quantity.
Exactly. But he was apparently completely against running promotions and offering things for free. He believed strongly in brand stewardship, in building value through quality and trust, rather than, as he might have seen it, bribing consumers with temporary discounts or giveaways. He trusted the product and the brand's inherent value to win loyalty. And there's another layer to their communication, how deeply it connects with Indian roots and values. This creates a powerful resonance that goes beyond just product attributes.
How do they do that in their sponsorships, for example?
Well, instead of just chasing the highest TV ratings, Amul often chose to sponsor culturally focused television shows, like the epic serials Mahabharat and Ramayan, which were huge phenomena watched by entire families across India. Their 50th anniversary commercial, for instance, didn't just celebrate the brand, it powerfully emphasized national pride in the cooperative movement itself, framing Amul as a symbol of India's self-reliance and farmer empowerment. That resonates deeply.
Okay, let's shift to governance. One of Amul's most critical and perhaps surprising advantages mentioned is its remarkable ability to remain largely free of political interference. That sounds almost too good to be true in a country as complex and politically charged as India, especially for a large cooperative. How did they manage that? Was that independence ever seriously tested?
It is a remarkable aspect and absolutely crucial to their long-term stability and focus. A key difference lies in the structure in Gujarat compared to cooperatives in some other Indian states. In many states, the government might hold a financial stake in dairy cooperatives and often appoints the managing director, which can lead to political considerations influencing decisions.
But not with GCMMF.
No. The Gujarat state government has no financial stake in GCMMF. And critically, the managing director is appointed by the GCMMF board itself, the board composed of the elected farmer representatives from the district unions. This structural independence ensures a much greater degree of autonomy and allows for long-term strategic planning focused on the cooperatives and farmers' interests, rather than short-term political agendas.
Did Kurian play a role in establishing that culture?
Immensely. While the sources don't detail specific instances of political battles won, it's clear that Kurian's strong leadership, his integrity, and his unwavering focus on farmer welfare established a powerful culture of professionalism and independence right from the start. He fostered an environment where political influence was actively resisted or kept at bay, prioritizing efficiency and the cooperative's mission above all else. And this connects to another vital point. Amul's reputation for transparency and integrity, particularly given the sheer volume of daily cash transactions involved in milk collection. How do they maintain that?
Yeah, handling hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash daily across thousands of villages. That sounds like a recipe for leakage or corruption in many contexts.
It does, but Amul prides itself, as the source says, on being scrupulously brutally clean. Despite India's broader challenges with corruption, the Amul system, with its transparent weighment, fat testing, and immediate payment at the village level, built a high degree of trust. Apparently, not a penny goes unaccounted for in these daily transactions.
How is that culture maintained?
Again, a lot goes back to the culture Kurian fostered. He demanded accountability and ethical conduct. He also encouraged a separation of personal politics from organizational decisions. The idea was that when you entered the cooperative meeting, you left your political differences at the door and focused solely on what was best for the farmers and the organization. This culture of accountability, transparency, and shared purpose is an incredibly rare and powerful asset.
Okay, let's fast forward now to the time frame of the case study, around 2013. The leadership baton had passed from Kurian to R.S. Surti, the MD we mentioned earlier, an IRMA graduate. He faces this immense challenge: how to modernize Amul for a new India while fiercely safeguarding Dr. Kurian's foundational legacy and principles. What's the core of his tightrope walk?
Surti's dilemma, as presented, is truly multifaceted. It's a classic case of balancing continuity and change. He needs to cater to the increasingly sophisticated demands of urban consumers who want new products, convenience, maybe even health-focused options. At the same time, he has to keep engaging with village youth, ensuring the cooperative model remains relevant and appealing to the next generation of potential farmers.
So serving two very different constituencies.
Exactly. And then there's the strategic dimension. How does Amul expand internationally, take the brand global, while simultaneously defending its dominant position domestically against a rising tide of competition? It's really about evolving strategically without losing the soul of the organization, without abandoning those core cooperative principles that made Amul successful in the first place.
And that competition was certainly heating up around 2013. How is that playing out for Amul? What kind of threats were they facing?
Yeah, the competitive landscape was definitely intensifying. For one, you had other local cooperative brands in different states starting to successfully replicate parts of the Amul model in their own regions. This made pure brand differentiation based on the cooperative structure alone a bit more challenging.
So copycat competitors.
To some extent, yes. But the bigger challenge probably came from the large multinational firms, Danone, Nestle, Unilever, and also strong indie and private players like Britannia. They were aggressively targeting urban consumers, especially in high-grade value-added segments like yogurts, flavored milk, cheese, and ice cream. They had deep pockets for marketing and product innovation.
And even potentially B2B players.
Right. The source mentions New Zealand's Fonterra, a global dairy giant, which had entered and then exited the Indian B2B market due to some issues. But their potential presence highlighted the threat from large international players who could disrupt supply chains or compete for milk procurement. It showed Amul needed constant vigilance on multiple fronts.
Another big challenge mentioned is connecting with India's youth. Amul, by 2013, was essentially a 60-year-old brand. How do you make a legacy brand like that feel relevant and exciting for younger generations who might not remember the White Revolution firsthand?
That's a key challenge for any long-established brand. How do you bridge that generational gap? Amul was trying to tackle this proactively. One approach was through sponsorships aimed at youth interests.
Like what?
They started sponsoring popular high-profile sporting events, things like Formula One racing, the Cricket World Cup, and they sponsored the Indian contingent at the 2012 London Olympics, trying to associate the brand with dynamism, youth, and national pride in a contemporary context.
Moving beyond just traditional family shows?
Exactly. And they also continued investing in goodwill at the grassroots level with younger people. For example, awarding tens of thousands, 50,000 annually, of Amul-branded prizes to school children for academic excellence. The idea was to build positive associations and brand familiarity right from a young age. Then there was another significant potential threat looming: foreign direct investment, or FDI, in multi-brand retail. In 2012, the Indian government had opened the door, allowing up to 51% FDI in this sector. Why was this a concern for Amul?
How would big foreign retailers impact Amul?
Well, Western retail giants like Walmart or Tesco typically operate on much higher margins than traditional Indian retail, maybe over 30% margin for the retailer. Amul's model, remember, relied on relatively lower margins for its distributors and retailers, typically between 5% and 22%, ensuring more money went back to the farmer.
Right, the 80–85% back to the farmer model.
Exactly. There was a real fear that these powerful global retailers could come in and use their buying power to dictate terms, squeezing margins and potentially disrupting that delicate balance where Indian producers received 70–80% of the final consumer price, compared to maybe just 35–40% in the US or UK systems.
So it threatened the core economic model of the cooperative.
It absolutely did. And that's a key reason why Amul was so aggressively pushing to set up its own network of franchised Amul parlors. It was partly a strategy to protect itself by having a direct sales channel, less dependent on potentially powerful third-party retailers.
Makes sense. Okay, let's talk about the raw material itself, the milk. Securing a consistent growing supply of quality milk sounds like another complex puzzle for Sodhi and Amul. Two big issues seem intertwined here: the desire to expand procurement outside Gujarat and the persistent problem of low average milk yields from Indian cows. What are the implications of these pressures?
Yeah, securing the raw milk supply is fundamental, and it presented a multi-layered challenge. On one hand, Amul's member unions, particularly those in Gujarat, were keen to procure milk from farmers in other states like West Bengal, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, to fuel national growth and compete more effectively across India.
But there were hurdles.
Yes, primarily regulatory. Gujarat's Cooperative Societies Act apparently required specific permission for unions to operate or procure milk significantly outside the state. Plus, there were internal political questions. If you start procuring heavily from farmers in, say, Maharashtra, would those farmers eventually demand representation of the GCMMF board? How would that sit with the established Kyra farmers who founded the cooperative? Potential for friction there.
Okay, internal and external challenges to expansion. And what about the yield problem?
That's the other side of the coin, and perhaps even more fundamental. The average milk yield of Indian cows, around 3.4 liters per day back then, was significantly lower than the world average of about 6.3 liters.
Less than half the world average. Why so low?
A combination of factors, really. Poor genetics in much of the indigenous herd, limited access to clean water in many areas, increasing pressure on grazing land due to urban sprawl, challenges with animal diseases, and awfully suboptimal feed and fodder management by small farmers.
So, improving yields isn't easy.
Not easy at all. While Amul was already offering higher milk payments and providing support programs like feed and veterinary care, significantly boosting average yields across millions of farms would require massive long-term national efforts in breeding programs, better fodder cultivation, farmer education, and it would inevitably raise costs. Plus, many small farmers were, understandably, often tied to traditional techniques or faced constraints like low literacy rates, making adopting new practices slow. And this brings us to perhaps one of the most significant long-term threats identified, the brain drain from rural areas to cities. Younger generations, especially educated ones, were increasingly reluctant to take up dairy farming. Why is this happening, and why is it such a problem?
Right. If the kids don't want to farm, who will produce the milk in the future?
Exactly. Many young people started viewing traditional dairy farming as, frankly, dirty work. It's demanding, 365 days a year, no holidays, often physically strenuous, and historically, much of the daily labor fell on women within the household.
So it lacked appeal compared to open jobs.
For many, yes. Ironically, this migration is partly a sign of the success of initiatives like the White Revolution and the Milk Roads. They generated income, allowed families to educate their children, and those children then pursued opportunities in non-agricultural careers in towns and cities. Social mobility is happening.
But it creates a vacuum back on the farm.
Precisely. It creates this worrying vacuum. You lose the next generation of farmers, you lose the transfer of institutional knowledge, and it directly threatens the long-term sustainability of milk procurement for organizations like Amul. It's a major policy challenge for India's cities getting overcrowded, while the rural areas that feed them risk losing their workforce.
So, if younger generations were leaving the traditional small farms, what did Amul propose as a potential solution to this profound migration challenge? How do they plan to keep the milk flowing and make dairy attractive again?
Their proposed solution marked a significant strategic shift. To attract younger, perhaps more entrepreneurial individuals back to dairy, Amul started encouraging the development of larger, more modern dairy farms, maybe farms with 20, 30 cattle instead of just 2 or 3.
Larger scale, more professionalized.
Exactly. Farms large enough to benefit from modern technology, better management practices, and potentially generate a more substantial, attractive income. They even identified banks willing to offer loans, maybe around $30,000, to help young people set up such farms.
And the thinking was this could be a viable career.
The belief was that a young entrepreneurial farmer running a modern 20, 30 cow operation could potentially earn around $700 per month. That was often more than they could realistically expect from many entry-level city jobs, especially considering the lower cost of living in rural areas. And crucially, they would have Amul as a guaranteed captive buyer for their milk.
So, shifting the model slightly.
It really signaled a potential evolution, moving away from being, as one person put it, totally dependent on the poor smallholder with 2 cows, towards also actively fostering a new generation of modern small to medium scale dairy entrepreneurs who saw farming as a respectable, profitable business venture.
Yeah.
So when you pull it all together, what truly stands out in Amul's story is its utterly unique journey. It's a cooperative born from farmer struggle, founded on the principle of people power, that went on to fundamentally transform India's entire dairy sector.
Yeah, through decades of innovation, really clever strategic branding, and always maintaining that deep, unwavering commitment back to its farmers and the communities they lived in.
Absolutely. A remarkable blend of business success and social mission.
And as you think about Amul's position in 2013 and its future, you really have to consider Sodhi's immense dilemma. The weight of expectation on him must have been huge tasked with balancing Dr. Kurian's foundational, almost sacred legacy with the undeniable, urgent need to adapt Amul to a rapidly changing economic and social landscape in India.
It's a powerful testament to the enduring strength of Kurian's vision, for sure, and also a stark reminder of the constant pressure on any successful organization, especially one with such deep social roots, to evolve and stay relevant. Which leads us to a final thought for you, our listeners. considering Amul's really quite remarkable ability to blend significant economic success with profound social empowerment and deep cultural relevance over so many decades. What fundamental lessons can its cooperative model, its unique blend of farmer power and professional management, offer to other developing economies today? Especially those grappling with similar complex challenges of rural development, navigating the information age, and finding sustainable ways to empower their own people. Something to mull over until our next deep dive.